Like the kind of the doghouse.
Okay, it's a big one. Naoya Inoue versus Stephen Fulton at Super Bantamweight for the WBC and WBO world titles. And this fight, I think, has gone under the radar for a lot of people, mainly because we've had a lot of big fights in boxing recently. We've had, Spence and Crawford obviously is in the same week, but then we've also got Davis Garcia, Haney and Loma, all those type of fights. And it's been a good year for boxing. And this fight, I think, is no shortage. It's an incredible fight with two incredible fighters. You got Naoya Inoue, the monster, who's somebody who comes in there, walks you down, rips the body, a very skilled technician and fantastic boxer, and a vicious, not necessarily I would say a massive puncher, but somebody who at the weight, he definitely has fantastic anticipation and timing, and he has, I'd say, about 7 to 8 out of 10 power at the weight, but his timing makes it all a lot worse. He is a little bit like I'd say almost a cross between like a Gennady Golovkin and Errol Spence. He's like Golovkin in the way he walks you down, but he cuts angles the way Spence does as well. So an incredible fight, this one. And then you got Stephen Fulton out of Philly. An amazing fighter, got crazy fast, fantastic accuracy. Definitely, I think, one of the most underrated fighters in boxing at the moment. And somebody who, I mean, people are looking like saying that Inoue is going to just dominate him and beat him with ease. I don't believe that is the case. This is a very, very hard fight. This is, without a doubt, for both men, the hardest fight of both of their careers. And I do think that when it comes to Inoue, obviously, because he's at such a small, not small weight, but yeah, I guess a small weight, and a weight class that doesn't really, scream out to you. Reminds me of Loma, when everybody was talking about Loma back in the day when he was younger, beating everybody when he beat Nicholas Walters and people like that. Everybody kind of looked at Loma as an incredible fighter, but he didn't really have much competition in that weight class. And I think that is it's the problem with fighters, who go lower. You don't really get to fully see their stock. And also, I think there's a problem, like boxing doesn't really pay much attention to the low weight classes. I think, I would say after 135, I believe the interest almost drops. Whereas I feel like in boxing, the heavyweight division is always like the premium division, but I think welterweight's a division that's had so many greats as well. Even at middleweight, if you look at almost each weight class, they've almost all had a fight who's sort of got interest. At heavyweight, you got several. You got Joshua, Fury, Wilder, Usyk now getting more popular. At cruiserweight, not so much. In fairness, Tony Bellew was there, who had a lot of interest in the UK. You had obviously Usyk was up there at the time. Light heavyweight, you had Andre Ward, you had Kovalev. Super middleweight, at the moment you got Canelo. Middleweight, you had Canelo was there, but then also you had Golovkin, as well as the likes of Marvin Hagler back in the day. Junior middleweight, you've had at the moment you got Jamal Charlo, but who's obviously fighting Canelo next. But then again, some of these fighters like Floyd, from time to time, sort of went up there, and then at welterweight you've got obviously the likes of Floyd, Ricky Hatton, Manny Pacquiao, Sugar Ray Leonard, you had Amir Khan, you had Errol Spence now, and Terence Crawford. You got a lot of fighters who have gained interest. John Boots, Ennis, Conor Benn, so many who have that name. But yeah, either way though, still an incredible fight nonetheless, and I think a fight that really is... First of all, I want to say, I think you got to give credit to Fulton for going to Japan to fight him and going to Tokyo, because so many fighters, they don't want to go to a champion's background or go to the guy's home country, but he is, and I like that. Not many fighters have that, the cojones. However, an interesting fight, this one though. If you start with the Inoue, I believe there's Yuki's last fight beat Paul Butler. After that, beat Nonito Donaire. And again, like, names don't jump out to you, but some very, very solid wins. Beat Donaire twice, obviously. And then with Steve Fulton, 21 wins, 8 KOs for Fulton. His last fight beat Daniel Roman, beat Brandon Figueroa, Angelo Leo. And the records, if you look at them, are quite similar, to be honest. Obviously, Inoue's got 24 wins and no losses and 21 KOs, whereas, like I said, Fulton, 21 wins with 8 KOs. So, Fulton, a lot more, how do you explain? A little bit more of a sharper puncher, I would say, there anyway. Not a bigger puncher, per se, but you look at somebody like Fulton. I do think he's got the skill set that I think would really cause Inoue some problems. I don't think it's necessarily a horrible fight for Inoue in that sense. I think he definitely can impose his will on Fulton. You know, Fulton's very skilled, fantastic mover, great footwork. Keeps a relatively sort of wide stance, so you can't really hit him. He stays very long as well. But I think he's just got a very sharp jab and everything. So I do think that, you know, Fulton definitely has a lot to offer. And with the Inoue, I already explained, you know, somebody who cuts off the ring, vicious puncher, and fantastic IQ as well. He's one of the most complete fighters in boxing, I would say, today. So this fight has so much going for it. But if we now get into the fight, as always, I'll look at 3 things that I feel both fights should do, starting off with Stephen Fulton. The first thing I think he should do is jump on Inoue early and really insert his speed over him. Inoue is a relatively, I won't say slow starter, but he kind of picks his shots a little bit like how Tank does it. And I think this is good, but yes, the guy who can make you uncomfortable, I think it works. I think when you look at Fulton, he has the speed. His jab is very, very sharp, and I think it's something that with Inoue, again, there's so many incredible fights to do this where they kind of just wait for the right time and sort of download the data to per se. But I don't really, I don't always like this with fights. When you have tendencies, you can you'll eventually meet a guy who will exploit them. And you know, one thing about Fulton, you know, it's kind of I wouldn't say like a massive fight at the weight, but he's quite long, and I think to me this is something that I believe is going to be a big issue. I think because with Inoue, he has to kind of close the distance on you and he has to cut the ring off. I don't believe that is as easy as some people make it out to be. You know, when you look at the reach advantage, they both got an identical reach, and height wise, Fulton's just a little bit taller. But the fact that it's a identical reach, but Fulton keeps quite long, I do think it would be quite difficult for Inoue to really land at first. But yeah, I think that's the first thing, though. Like I said, just start off quick. Second one I'd say is, and he does this anyway, but I really do think your first sort of, I don't know, let's say your first 25 punches, all of them, in my opinion, should be jabs, because you really want to get Inoue frustrated. You want to upset his rhythm. I think Inoue is incredible, like I said, cut the ring off using his IQ, but once you start putting a jab in his face and really making him work for it, we've seen against the Donaire, it wasn't the first time around, wasn't that easy, and I think that's one thing you can do with Inoue. I think his hand speed, Fulton's good, and I think if you can almost get Inoue frustrated and let him almost overreach and swing at you, that's where I think the hand speed could really be a factor in this one. I look at Fulton, I think there's so much he has going from skill-wise. I think he's got a lot there, and I do think it's going to be an interesting fight in that sense. One thing I think Fulton can't do is make it a dogfight, but I'll sort of get to that when I talk about Inoue. Third thing he needs to do, Fulton, and I think this is very important, is I don't think you can ever stop it moving in this fight. I think if you can constantly circle Inoue and don't get caught up in the clinch, because in the clinch, like I said, Fulton's bigger, but I do kind of think Inoue may have the strength advantage. So I feel you don't want to really tie up with him that much. I think if you do that, it's going to be a hard one. One thing about Fulton, he does have a thing where he does tend to switch stances, and I think if you can kind of just keep Inoue guessing and move around him, switch stances, just give him a lot to think about, I think you'd have a lot of success. And Fulton's an excellent fighter, and I think this is going to be a good fight. At only 21 as well. I mean, 21 wins Fulton. He's not hasn't had like a crazy amount of fights you would think, but has enough. And again, age-wise, I'd have to look really, but I'm pretty sure there's only 1 year between them, I think, between Fulton and Inoue. I think, right, so Fulton's 29, so he's got a decent, I think, coming into his prime. So I think he's well-versed enough. Obviously, he hasn't got a crazy amount of fights, but enough, I think, to really, you know, say that he's ready for this type of fight. But either or, we'll see what happens. And then we get to Naoya Inoue, the monster. So many great things about this guy, an incredible fighter. And I think the first thing I would say about Inoue, which I think he should do and I think he needs to do in this fight, is first of all, I think you need to do your utmost to not give Fulton any space to work. I think you have to really close the distance, but almost cut off the ring. and really make it uncomfortable. I almost feel like you're suffocating him in there, because I don't think you can allow Fulton to get into his rhythm, because if you do that, I think then you are pretty much essentially playing Inoue's game, or playing Fulton's game, and you can't allow him to really get into any kind of rhythm. I think if you make it uncomfortable for there, a little bit like what Maidana did to Floyd, but not as wild, just don't let him work, and I think that would be the first one. So yeah, like I said, I think don't give Fulton any space would be my first answer point. And then my second point, I would say, to what Inoue should do, and obvious, but it's something he always does, but I really think, mixing up your body and head attacks would be very smart in this one. I think Fulton's a good mover, but you get the body and get him slowing down, it will make him drop his hands, and that's when naturally his face will be exposed. It's the classic Mickey Ward head body combination, but I believe it will work really well against Fulton, simply because of how erratic he can sometimes be, Fulton, if you get him a little bit uncomfortable. So I'd say head body combination, don't neglect either one, go to both. And he traditionally does do this anyway. And I think the third point that I've got here, and I think with it being in Tokyo, the judges are going to favour Inoue, and I think as a fighter, you often look at fighters who have to kind of do crazy stuff to try and get the judges on side, but I think sometimes you can look at it the other way. If you've got the judges on your side already, you may as well just use that and sort of, to me, I would just say for Inoue, be the aggressor and don't ever, I don't think, obviously you can't let Fulton work, but I think if you're aggressive, you land the bigger shots, judges are going to give it to you. We all know how they work. So, like I said, first one, my third point, be an aggressor. Be the aggressor in this fight. Don't let Fulton settle. Let your hands go. Make it comfortable. And I think you'll have a lot of success doing this one. I think it's going to be a real close fight, I do. But, like I said, those are my points. So I feel for Fulton, like I said, keep it moving. Pop out the jab. Start quick. I think you'll have Inoue in a lot of trouble. I think for Inoue, getting close, cut off the ring, like I said, head body, and be the aggressor. And I think you'll see both of all these sort of points, they all kind of tailor to the others, both fighters, I think. And the game plan, I think, will be quite similar, to be honest. I do think Inoue will be aggressive, and I do think Fulton will try and stay on the outside and almost snipe him at range, to say that. Now, my prediction, I think I've kind of gone back and forth. I really think Fulton's very, very good, and I think he'll cause Inoue a lot of problems. However, Inoue is such a solid fighter and has everything. I don't think he would allow himself to really perform poorly in this fight in Japan. And I do think it'll be a close fight. Part of me actually does feel like Fulton can really hurt Inoue and cause him some problems in this one, because I'd really, I think the way Fulton moves is one of those things that I think is going to be a problem for Inoue. But I do think if he allows Inoue to really assert himself and allows him to land the body shots, Fulton is going to be in for a long, long night, because Inoue is a dangerous, dangerous man. But if I had to pick, honestly, it's going to sound like a shock because of how good Inoue is, but I think Fulton actually gets this done, and it's going to be even more surprising what I say. I think he gets it done by decision. I think he'll get it so many rounds in the bag that I think it'll be hard then for Inoue to really come on and win, from even if you want to try and give the fight to him. And I actually think in this one, I think it'll be a bit somewhat similar to Loma and Teofimo, but I think just a little bit more decisive. I think Inoue will try and pressure, but I think like Fulton will land little pot shots, and I feel the last 3 to 4 rounds will be a war, and both guys will just go back and forth, back and forth. This is going to be an incredible fighter. It's a great week for boxing. This and Spence Crawford, which obviously I'm definitely going to do a preview for, but an incredible fight. I think Fulton Inoue, amazing for boxing, and yeah, I think Fulton gets it done. However, you think I'm stupid and think Inoue wins? I wouldn't disagree, because Inoue is an absolute beast, and I think it's an incredible fight. But yeah, Fulton Inoue, just my preview. I'll do a review after the fight as always, and yeah, until next time.